Okay, if you can hear me, let me know. If you can't hear me, I will find out soon enough. If you're watching this in post, feel free to skip ahead. There's a timer on the screen, and if you're watching this live, feel free to take a break until the timer reaches 0. That was a smooth intro. Now, give me a sec while I work on a lot of things in the background. Regrettably, I did not have too much time to set up for this stream. So I am scrambling just a little bit, but I think I'll have enough time to pull it all together. What's about, Eric? Welcome back. If I'm quiet, it's because I'm locked in. No other reason. What's up, Thumper? Welcome back. We got a minute 43. Okay, with 0 time to spare, I have made it. This should be fine. This should be fine. Is this good? I think so. Yeah, sure. Okay. I think we're set. I think we're doing just fine. Okay. Let's do this. Hello everyone. Welcome back. It's been, I want to say 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since we last streamed. a game for the 99 More live stream where we cover 99 other tabletop RPGs. Today's game is Dungeon Crawl Classics. Dungeon Crawl Classics is exactly the name that I'm looking at. And boy, let me tell you, I know nothing about this game. The only reason I decided to choose this, well, actually, there's two reasons. One is because it's entirely free. This Quickstart that we're reading can be found on the internet for $0. In fact, I downloaded it about 2.5 minutes ago. The other reason is that I constantly see this referenced on Bob World Builder's YouTube channel as a game that he really enjoys. And as someone who really likes his work and really likes how he covers tabletop RPGs, I wanted to give it a look and see if it is truly unique in the sphere of tabletop RPGs as far as I know it. People might know that I cover more recently published games as of late. I think the last 30 or so games I've covered, like 28 of them were published in the last decade. This game is a little bit older, a little bit more leaning into an old school style of dungeon delving as far as I know. If you want to read along, you're free to find this game for yourself. The quick start is available in the description of this video. You can download it and you can tune me out entirely and read it on your own to see if this is a game for you. That said, I do want to bounce over to a couple of interesting things about this that I've recently learned. And also, before we jump into this, I might step away for a little bit on this stream. There might be a brief intermission. I do have a family member returning from a very long flight sometime tonight. I don't know the exact time, but if it's in the middle of the stream, then I will take a break for just a moment to say hi. But let's keep going. Also, I believe this is game 82 of the 99 More series, which means there's only 17 more games after this. If you are familiar with this game in particular, Dungeon Crawl Classics, you can absolutely correct me at any time during the stream if there's something I misunderstand. I very much appreciate the insights of people more familiar with the game. Now, let's get into it. Dungeon Crawl Classics, role-playing game. Where is the Chrome tab? Should be here. Perfect. This is the website of oh, how cool. There's like a little XP thing next to your names. I don't know what that means. I really couldn't tell you. What does this mean? Oh, it's like when you send live chats in chat. I understand. Okay. Wait, is that a thing on YouTube? I'm so distracted. No, maybe not. Yeah. Look, YouTube has these little crown things now, depending on who comments the most. I think. I don't know. That's some newfangled stuff. I'm not gonna look into too deeply. Anyway, Dungeon Crawl Classics is very well supported. I think that's the first impression it's made on me. There have been tons and tons and tons of releases for this game. If you could just see right here. There's multiple zines and publications and modules for you to play if you're interested in picking up this game. Some games release some fantasy heartbreakers, as they'd like to call it, medieval fantasy games in the same genre as the One Dragon game. Often find themselves falling to the wayside, not able to keep pace with the release schedule of D&D. This game doesn't seem to have that problem. There are so many games here available, specifically on the publisher's website, that you could look into. If there's no shortage of adventures for seemingly any genre or any holiday, as it even has holiday adventures here. Different themes for different levels of your games available here. And of course, there's newest releases and bestsellers sorted on goodman-games.com. I believe on their website you can also find literally the PDF that we're looking at right now. I think this link is broken, but there's a couple. This website is a little bit antiquated. Nothing I can really do about that. But look, I just clicked on this on the website. It's loading up right now. I just click the link on the side, and if this loading bar doesn't fill me, look, this is the game. This is what we're reading right now. I didn't have to download anything. It just exists, right? And you can read it yourself. Now, just looking at the formatting of this thing, it looks kind of old-fashioned. I'm going to be real. This is not too pleasing to the eye, I guess, on first impression. I barely know what to expect from this kind of game. I do know that it was made in either the 2000s or the 2010s, so it was a little older than what we usually cover in this series. But that's not any hit on its quality. There's a reason that this has persisted for so long, and it almost certainly has a varied fan base that continues to perpetuate it. So, with that said, let's dive in. Click. Fantastic. Okay, this PDF is 36 pages long. Again, entirely free. You can download this yourself and not listen to me. And I'm just going to page through it. I'm just going to parse through it. I have no idea where to start or where to end. Let's just look into it and see what it provides. As you can see from right here, there's an adventure you could run that's entirely free. And there's also character sheets that you could download as well. They link those directly to the website. All things considered, this is very well laid out. As old as this might be. Actually, this is a 2023 version, which is really cool. It was released recently, or at least updated recently. You could find them online. I kind of am remiss that I didn't get a chance to really study up on the context of this game before this stream. That's a failing of mine, but if I can absolutely stand corrected. Some guy says DCC is fun. Sadly, Goodman Games has made some poor decisions lately. With zero context, I can't comment on that. This is one of the very few games covered on the 99 More series where I wasn't able to reach out to the author. Usually when I cover a game that is if there's a monetary cost to the game, I always make sure to reach out to the author and get their permission before covering it, mostly because, otherwise it's basically piracy. And I would just usually try to get their blessing to cover it. This game in particular, since it was free, I didn't see any reason to really reach out to them in particular. Maybe I should have, but I don't know. Sometimes I will, unfortunately, find games better than their creators, I guess, would be how someone describe it. I'm not going to think too deeply into it. I'm going to take the recommendations of other players to cover this game in its entirety. That said, art's really cool. This is just a jump page from the beginning. Let's read this out and see if this just kind of gives us the gist of this game. Okay. You're no hero. You're an adventurer, a reaver, a cutpurse, a heathen slayer, a tight-lipped warlock guarding long-dead secrets. You seek gold and glory, winning it with sword and spell, caked in the blood and filth of the weak, the dark, the demons, and the vanquished. There are treasures to be won deep underneath, and you shall have them. Oh, and you shall have them. ... DCC RPG starter rules. These starter rules were written specifically to introduce judges and players to the DCC RPG system. In some areas, rules have been condensed and simplified. These rules will serve primarily to get characters through their first level 0 adventure and their first level 1 adventure. Although the rules go up to level 1, you won't have the full play experience until you buy the core rulebook, of course. This starter document should be enough for you to realize how much fun the game is. Find for the full DCC experience and play at levels up to 10th. Please refer to Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG Rulebook. Okay, so the core mechanic in DCC RPG is the D20 roll. You will frequently be asked to roll 1d20 and add or subtract modifiers. The goal is to roll high and beat a DC, as this sounds familiar to D&D so far. Sometimes the DC will have a specific term, like an armor class or AC, which is a combat variety of a DC. A higher DC is more difficult to beat, and a better armored creature has a higher AC. If you roll equal or higher than the DC or AC, you could succeed, otherwise you fail. A roll of 1 is an automatic failure and often results in a fumbling failure of some kind. A roll of 20 is an automatic hit and often results in a critical success of some kind. Occasionally, a character may roll a die other than 1d20 when acting. 1d16, 1d24, and even 1d30 are used for weaker or stronger warriors and spellcasters. Okay, so I was about to say that this sounds a lot like what we're used to, right? Obviously, people who are new to the stream might not know, but I am very much rooted in 5e. That was my first tabletop RPG, and where I learned the meat and potatoes of running a game. So whenever there's a game that is dungeon/dragon adjacent, I do tend to compare it to what I'm familiar with in D&D 5th edition. And all of this seems very, very familiar until this very last line right here that says 1d16, 1d24, and 1d30 incredible rolls. I do not have those dice. I have some weird dice. I have a couple of 1d3s, I think, which are nice, but I don't have these larger numbers, which is super cool to me. But let's see how else this game might be different. One of the most fun aspects of using funky dice is getting to roll these dice. Many traditional RPGs utilize modifiers to dice rolls as a way to express improved success or failure in an action. For example, an attack with an offhand weapon may incur a -4 penalty. DCC RPG utilizes this traditional modifier system, but also employs a system of swapping out die types. Although D20 is the core die mechanic of the game, there are times when the player may be instructed to roll a D16 or 24 instead, depending on whether the action has an improved or reduced chance of success. The system for moving up and down different die types is known as the dice chain. The dice chain is represented as follows: D3, D4, D5, D67, D8, D10, D12, D14, D16, D20, D24, D30. Ah, that's super fun. They really said we're going to use all the dice. Whenever the rules specify the bonus of +1d, the die to be rolled moves one step to the right of the chain, culminating in a D30, the largest die that can be used. That's fun. That's pretty fun. When the rules specify a penalty of -1d, the die to be rolled moves one step to the left, culminating in a D3, the smallest die that can be used. I disagree. A D2 is a coin, but that's fine with me. Multiple steps can switch the die type 2 or more steps, and combined improved and reduced results can offset each other. Sure. Modifiers to the roll, such as +1 and -2, are applied to the result of the new die type. Okay, that's fun. I am only familiar with this growing die thing from Kids on Brooms, which uses all the dice for the ability score rolls, and it does play into the interesting thing of when a die is bigger, obviously it has greater potential to roll higher, but lower dice or dice with a lower number of faces have a higher chance to critical hit, so to speak. So a D3 has a much better chance of critical hitting. Actually, I don't know that for sure. I could just be lying. Because the 3 on a D3 is much more likely than a 20 on a D20. But we'll see. We'll see. How is this game different from what I have played before? That's a great question that I would ask. If you're familiar with the more recent versions of the world's most popular fantasy role-playing game, tongue-in-cheek, DCC RPG does not use proficiency bonuses, advantage and disadvantage, specific skills, or spell slots. Instead of advantage and disadvantage, a player might roll a die with more sides or one with fewer sides, depending on if circumstances favor or hinder them. Makes sense. You could roll a d12 to hit an opponent, but if conditions aren't in your favor, but you also might roll a 30-sided die to attack if you're in a position of superiority. Ability points and even race are randomly determined rather than chosen. Oh, interesting. While this might sound limiting, in practice it's been observed that players often end up with characters they could never have imagined on their own and love these unexpected heroes. Classes and races are one and the same. You are a wizard or an elf. Oh, huh. This is some old school stuff where classes and races are entirely separate. There are only 7 classes in DCC RPG. Huh. So is elf different? We'll find out. So is elf one of these 7 classes? We'll see. There are only 3 saving throws: fortitude, reflex, and will, and these are not ability saves. Sure, that makes sense. I'm familiar with that concept. DCC RPG does not have prestige classes, attacks of opportunity, feats, or skill points. There are no backgrounds in DCC RPG, but there are occupations which might suggest what your character did before becoming an adventurer. Sure. These occupations suggest rather than codify what types of knowledge and talents a character possesses. Okay, and this is other things that are that are also these are things that are also standard to different editions of DCC, I believe. So cleric turns creatures that are unholy to their religion. All spells are cast with a spell check. Sure. That's like a spell attack roll. Wizards may or may not lose the ability to cast spells as they adventure. Interesting. A low roll means the wizard cannot cast a spell for the rest of the day. On a high result, they can cast a spell again. Oh, interesting. It's kind of random whether wizards have access to their spells at a certain point. Cleric spellcasting works differently from wizard casting. Clerics never lose a spell when it's cast. However, when a cleric casts a spell and fails in their attempt, they may increase their natural failure range. By the end of the day, the cleric may automatically fail on more rolls than just a natural one. Oh, interesting. So, if you fail once, you have a higher chance of failing in the future, I think is what that means. Here's a critical hit matrix. Higher level characters and martial characters generate critical hits more often and roll on more deadly result tables. Cool. You can burn off ability points to enhance die rolls. All characters can burn luck, and wizards and elves can burn other abilities. So I'm curious, I guess, my question, because, well, I will say this is an interesting system. It very much delineates the two styles of casting into, will I be able to cast this spell again, and will my chance of success slowly dwindle? It's a resource management system that relies a lot on RNG, and I think a lot of people like that. That magic is this cryptic thing that can't be entirely predicted. So the randomly generated failure, I guess, is fun for some people. Rather than having an exact number of spells you can cast, or knowing exactly, to almost meta knowledge, knowing exactly how much magic you can cast per day, they would prefer to leave it up to randomness, and that's just a choice, and that's cool. I'm so curious about this thing that elves can't be wizards, because I know that's a concept from like older games, but so far I know about wizards, clerics, and elves as the 3 different types of classes. So I'm wondering what the other 4 are. Weird dice. Okay. DCC also makes use of Zochi dice in the following configurations: D3, D5, D7, D14, D16, D24, and D30. Right, and there's substitutions you can use if you don't happen to have these dice. That's perfectly fine. Okay, here we go. Character creation. In DCC RPG, player characters are not created by staying up all night devising a unique and interesting backstory. You roll up 0-level, untrained, and uneducated peasants and play that unique backstory out. We highly suggest each player roll up multiple 0-level characters, at least 3, possibly more. Don't get attached. Characters that survive their first dungeon then choose classes and become worth remembering. Okay, that's fun. Obviously, people can get very invested in their characters in certain tabletop RPGs, and that's perfectly fine. Actually, that's something I'm used to, and are very resistant to losing that character. But there's a lot of games that don't hold any sort of, what's the word? Don't hold their character sacred, so to speak. Basically, the character that makes it out of the dungeon is the character worth saving and worth continuing with. That's the mentality that this game goes into, which is neat. 3d6, ability scores, strength, agility, stamina, intelligence, personality, luck. Huh, luck is a stat. Determine hit points, sure. Lucky sign. I'm not going to look too far into this. I don't really plan on building a character for this read through, but I am curious. Determine lucky sign. Roll 1d30, adjusted by luck modifier on table 1-2. The resultant lucky roll modifier associated with that lucky item is permanent and does not change later when luck is spent. I don't know what that means. Determine 0 level occupation. Roll 1d100 on table 1-3. Sure. Choose an alignment, choose starting money, choose starting equipment, or they come with starting equipment, and then attempt to survive your first dungeon. And if you survive the first level, you choose a class. Ability score modifier. Cool. Okay, so look, at a certain, this is an interesting concept. At a certain ability score, wizards are allowed to know an additional spell. So your spell knowledge scales with your intelligence, question mark, I think. And if you have negative modifiers on your ability scores, you're most likely to have less spells remembered, or even no spellcasting possible at ability score 3. Ooh, look at this. Luck score. I have no idea how to read this. Luck score. Yeah, this doesn't really explain to me what this is for, but this is an interesting chart. I'm assuming on a D30, if you roll your luck number, then something happens to you. I couldn't tell you anything else, though. That's just a guess. I don't even know if that's true. Occupation, this is the D100, I believe. Yeah. GM Archbold. Hey, welcome back. Eric, that does seem exactly right. So you start as just a guy, and if you survive the adventure, you become an adventurer. If you don't, then you were never going to become a character worth preserving, I guess is the mindset. It's the type of rolls affected by your luck stat modifier. Oh, okay, cool. I see. Oh, cool. So like a 1d30, so 30 potential options to gain like a random boon or benefit, I suppose. Leveling thresholds. I will say I still don't have, I won't say positive experiences. I'd rather just say any experiences with tabletop RPGs that lean on experience. Maybe that's just not the game I'm looking for nowadays, but I always find experience as a number concept leads to metagaming that I'm not too keen on in the tabletop RPGs that I play. Like, to do things because it's like optimal per experience has always felt a little weird to me, but that's just me. All those 0 level characters are trained in 1 weapon. Trade goods. I'm not going to look too deeply into this. Alignment is a choice of values. Sure. Experience points. Each encounter is worth 0 to 4 XP, and those XP are not earned merely by killing monsters, disarming traps, looting treasure, or completing a quest. Rather, successfully surviving encounters earns the character's XP in DCC RPG. A typical encounter is worth 2 XP, and the system scales from 0 to 4 depending on difficulty. I do like the experience system for things like Adventurers League. Is that what it's called? Where it's like you're organizing a bunch of people for organized play using the same module, and it's important to track the progression of these characters to group them with similarly experienced characters. I personally use experience in West Marches to track a character's leveling speed so that they can level independently depending on how many missions they take part in, which works, which is cool. But in terms of like a long-term campaign with just a few people, I never really understood the XP system. I always felt like it should match the story you're telling. To each his own. All characters that participate in the encounter receive the same XP. The judge determines how much XP is rewarded. Characters level up when they reach the XP threshold. Cool. Okay, interesting. This is gonna be like a foundational idea of this game, I think, is what this is looking like. Some role-playing games codify game balance in an abundance of character options. The DCC RPG takes an anachronistic approach to this concept by pursuing an even playing field through randomization rather than complexity. The character creation steps that follow generate a playstyle that may be unlike anything you have experienced in the last 20-odd years, provided you follow the steps precisely. Omit any element and you'll find that the process does not work. Here's why. DCC RPG generates characters using what the author refers to as a funnel. First, each player generates at least 2, and possibly as many as 4, zero-level characters. It's critical that the characters be generated using the process as described. Completely random ability scores, random occupation, random modifier, and random equipment. Each player ends up with an assortment of characters who could potentially serve as several different classes. When all characters are generated, have the players go around the table and introduce their zero-level peons to their peers. The funnel takes place in zero-level play. During the first zero-level game, it is expected each player will lose some or most of their characters. When mere peasants and yeomen explore deadly dungeons, a high mortality rate is a matter of course. By the end of the first game, the players will be left with a motley crew of survivors, and this group of heroic adventurers becomes the first level party. Using this method of highly random character results, high mortality rates, player choices as to which of their randomly generated characters takes risks and which stays safe, you, the judge, will find you have a party of randomly generated characters in which the players have agency. There are essentially no opportunities for min-max play, and yet the players find themselves attached to their plucky little serfs who have done such amazing deeds at low levels. Your zero-level exploits will define them forever, with great deeds completed at great risk. The author strongly encourages you to begin play using the method as described here exactly. Give it a chance, you may find you like it. Right. I see the appeal, right? As someone who really likes roguelikes, and enjoying the improvisation aspect of randomly generated stats and boons and things like that, I get it. I think it's super cool when your character serendipitously becomes very competent through not only like the luck of the draw, but also correct decisions you've made along the way. I get it. I think that's cool. And there are people who certainly like this style of play. They don't hold any character sacred, and they like the zero to hero funnel, as they call it, of finding the diamonds in the rough and getting attached to these imperfect, non-min-maxed characters. There's a humanity to not being exactly cut out for exactly the job you want to do, right? So I get it. I see the appeal. All right, I'm so curious. Character classes. At first level, GM Arcbolt. The only character survived was a guy I dubbed Bob, who I decided got to level 1 and became a lawful cleric, and he was randomly rolled as a human orphan. Yeah, that's someone I can get behind. Sure, why not, right? Here we go. Character classes. At first level, humans may become clerics, thieves, warriors, or wizards. For elves, dwarves, and halflings, their race is synonymous with their class. Cool. Okay, so pretty bog standard, pretty classic set of character options here. Clerics, thieves, warriors, and wizards are very much the quintessential adventuring party. And then elves, dwarves, and halflings are kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm assuming a little bit of a hybrid of these four options. They probably have unique things that only they can do. and don't fit neatly into any of the other 4 classes. So I'm curious how they're going to handle that. The following information covers only the first 2 levels of each respective class, particularly in the case of spellcasters, and include only a limited list of abilities and spells. For the fully expanded abilities of each class, please reference DCC RPG rulebook. Okay, very quick skim of this then. Let's look. Adventuring cleric, militant servant of a god, larger order of brothers, wield weapons of faith, skilled fighter when using God's chosen weapons. Spiritually, they are a vessel that for the expression of their God's ideals. We said this was the cleric was interesting before because their spellcasting gradually, randomly increases the failure rate of the spell. So you can cast a spell as many times as you want, but eventually the chance of failure will be too great to overcome and no longer be optimal, which is cool. You know, it's kind of like you're pulling from a well of magic that doesn't belong to you, and eventually that well runs dry. And it's not really in your control when that well runs dry, so to speak. It's a nice little way. It's a nice way to kind of symbolize pulling from a god's domain, which is neat. So they seem to be good at both weapons and magic, and I won't look too deeply into that. Natural one needs disapproval, which is very funny, and each failed spell check increases the chance of disapproval. Yep. They have features like turn on holy and lay on hands. Okay, thief we have a general idea of. Is a cleric tankier than a thief? Yes. A cleric has a D8. Thief has a D6. They have a whole lot of weapons here, mostly small, precise weapons. Thieves' cant is their language, as we're familiar with. Apparently they lean into their luck die more than a cleric would. They can pick locks, find unstable traps, sneak silently, hide in shadows, climb sheer surfaces, forge documents, pick pockets, handle poison, and read languages. They have features like a backstab, sneak silently, and hide in shadows. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. I want to see what the dwarf's all about. I want to see like elves, dwarves, because I get it. Warriors, big hit points, big weapons, cool. Wizard, cool spells, randomly can no longer cast spells depending on their luck of the draw. Dwarf, what the heck is different about you? We get the visual. The visual is storch-out demi-human race with unabashed love for gold. Sure, seems pretty Tolkien-esque even. Pretty familiar themes. D10 hit points, a little less tanky than the warrior. They have weapon training and shield training. Lawful behavior in terms of alignment. Mighty deed of arms. They can perform mighty deeds of arms in combat. Mighty deeds of arms. Oh, so they have this. Physical prowess. They can, prior to any attack roll, a warrior can declare a mighty deed of arms, or for short, a deed. The deed is a dramatic combat maneuver within the scope of current combat. For example, a warrior may try to disarm an enemy for the next attack, or trip an opponent or smash them backward to open access to a nearby door. The deed does not increase damage, but could have some other combat effect. Pushing back an enemy, tripping or entangling them, or temporarily blinding them, and so on. Nice. Okay, dwarves have that too. Apparently. Yeah. But what else can they do? Okay, so they have their specialty is sword and board. When fighting with a shield, a dwarf always gains a shield bash as a second attack. This shield bash uses a D14 to hit instead of a D20. The dwarf adds their deed die to this number, as with all attacks, and can attempt mighty deed. Sure, the shield bash does 1d3 damage. Cool. So there's like a second attack that the dwarf always gets. It hits. It's a little lower to hit, and does a little less damage, but a second attack is really cool and kind of unique. Dark vision or infravision up to 60 feet. A little bit slower than humans, and they have skills underground. Sure, that's an elf. So that's a dwarf. So it's kind of I want to say it's a variation of the warrior. That's kind of how I'm reading it. If you don't want to play exactly a warrior, you could play a dwarf. It's very similar in battle strategy, but also it has these unique advantages pulled from their heritage and their bloodline. I'm assuming elf is much the same. They probably closer to thieves and maybe a little bit of magic, I would imagine. Yeah, lighter weapons, sensitivity to iron. Our characters are trained from an early age with mithril weapons. I see. Mithril armor wears slightly less than iron or steel armor of the same type and can be worn by the elf without pain normally associated with metal armors. And they can use magic. They have heightened senses, immune to magical sleep and paralysis. All of these are very familiar from 5th edition. Obviously pulling from an older book of lore. That kind of, I guess the same ancestor would be the idea with these. Okay. I'm not too... Yeah, look. As such, their spells tend to be more associated with elemental or demonic powers. All elves have one or more extraplanar patrons who sustain their magic. So, yeah. Different sorts of magic than clerics and wizards would be the elf thing. Kind of the third magic class. Then halflings, very small hit points. They can use very simple weapons, as far as I can tell. 2-weapon fighting is their specialty. Halfling will, when engaged in 2-weapon fighting, a halfling will also automatically achieve a critical hit on a roll of 16. Nice. They also have infravision. They're smaller size. They're stealthy, slow, good luck charm. Okay, so halflings are kind of thief coded. They're smaller, I guess. They can sneak into different places. Their unique aspect in terms of combat is 2-weapon fighting, and they're a little lucky, I guess. Okay. I feel like I'm saying okay a lot, mostly because my general impression as someone who didn't play tabletop RPGs before 2016 is that a lot of the concepts in this game so far feel like they pull from an older era of games. Games that very much delineate these sort of things and hold the classic fantasy to high regard, hold mortality and danger to as a kind of foundational concept, that life is not so sacred that it can't be taken away, a value of the glory of living and dying, and the thrill of surviving things that are truly deadly. That sort of energy is kind of what I'm seeing here, and I like it. I think it's different from what I play nowadays. It's something I certainly didn't grow up with, and I can see why this kind of almost modernized yet still streamlined take on these older types of games would be really appealing to people. I can definitely feel there's some sort of nostalgia in all the art and the layout and the way they word things, that I personally don't have, but I'm certain other people do. So this is one of those situations where I feel like the game is not necessarily for me, but there's definitely people it is for, and they appreciate this very much. I don't know how much more I'm going to read of this. I am hearing people arrive downstairs, so I will probably need to step away very soon and maybe just close the stream. Just to, spend time with the family. But I will very lightly browse the rest of this just to see if there's anything that sticks out to me. So I can't get over such the weird dice. I would love to try a game where the dice move so dramatically to these weird shapes. Truly something I've never experienced is rolling a D5 or a D16 or a D24. Never in my life. And it would be nice to experience it at least once. Yeah, so here's the action economy. Seems pretty familiar, all things considered. It seems like wizards and warriors have very distinct action economies, and they use smaller dice to signify a weaker second attack. Attack rolls, armor classes, fumbles, all pretty familiar. Critical hits, all about the same. Damage and death. Fumbles. Wow, fumble tables. I have mixed opinions on fumble tables. I, in general, don't really like it. It sometimes feels like you punish people for swinging more. And sometimes if a class is all about swinging more, and swinging more means you have a higher chance of fumbling and messing up, it feels bad. Like, it just feels bad. It's like, why I guess in D&D terms, why should the rogue deal as much damage as the fighter but have a much lower chance of fumbling? Like, I feel like there's a reason it was left out of 5th edition, and I don't really like fumbles. I think it's funny. I think it leads to some improv, but mostly, in my experience, having played a good number of games with fumble tables, it kind of just leaves a sour taste of like, well, there's no way I could have prepped for that. You know, a competent character like mine would never find themselves in such an uncharacteristic situation. It's kind of how I feel about fumble tables. But some people like it. It's not me. Like this, like here, like a turtle on its back, you slip and land upside down, flailing about, unable to right yourself. You must fight from a prone position for the next round before you can recover your balance and rise. Like that. I get that this game doesn't treat like characters as sacred or intended to be preserved, but this seems like a dumb way to die. You know, it doesn't seem very noble to lose your character like this. Crit tables. Well, this is cool. Look, a crit table. Now I can't be biased and say I like the crit table but not the fumble table. I get how this would be cool, but also this crit table is okay. I kind of see it. If they have such varied results for crit tables, matching the randomness of the fumbles, I can see why people are willing to take the risk. I did not play with special crit tables. I just played with normal bog standard crits, and fumbles felt like they did not counteract that. So this is kind of neat, I will say. I guess in tandem, the fumble tables and the crit tables together could make the game really interesting. And it's cool that they have crit tables for like different classes. Neat. Cool. Healing, magic, saving throws, burning luck. Yeah. I will say I think one of my biggest takeaway from a game like this is that I really do appreciate how they treat magic. Whereas they've made like 3 different systems for magic, or at least 3 different sources of magic. And their access to that magic is characterized by the mechanics. Like, it's a cleric slowly losing favor in their god. It's a wizard burdened by the knowledge that they have to retain, that they might lose their spells in the heat of the moment. I think that's sick. I think the way they've characterized that in the mechanics is really cool. And it makes me think, like, the closest thing 5e has to that is the warlock pact slots, which are okay. You know, they're not amazing. And the prepared versus known spells, but it's a much softer take on the truly chaotic nature of magic and how you're not supposed to assume that you can control it. This really speaks to how they value magic and how they revere it as something that is never totally under control. It's cool. It's neat. Okay, and these are just the spells. I'm not going to look too far into this. And that's the whole thing. So we have your Featherfall. Wow, what a long spell for Featherfall. I guess the higher you roll, the better the effect. But this is massive. Look at this. In 5e, this is like 2 lines. But if you look at this table from 1 to 32 plus, it like progressively gets better and better and better and better to the point that you could target more people, you could fall any height. So every spell kind of has this whole page of options. I'm assuming, I can only assume, I guess, I can never know for sure, that there's much less spells in this game, but each spell has so many different variations depending on what you roll for it, that like, even if you cast Flaming Hands 20 times, you'll experience it differently 8 different times, right? Alright, well, that's Dungeon Crawl Classics. The quick start, of course, only. There is a full version of this. I think I will stand by my opinion of great, but not for me, which is a good handful of games. This feels like it harkens back to an older time where games were much more lethal, much more deadly, and much more exciting because of that, I suppose. There are great limitations on the character, a very heavy focus on randomly generated characters, and not being afraid of losing them. Instead finding value and reverence in the characters that do survive, that they may rise from the Zero Hero story of great adventuring legend. I think there is a super cool dice chain system that allows your dice to grow and shrink depending on your advantages and disadvantages in the game. I love how they take care of magic. And I think this is a unique experience. I can safely say this is a unique experience to the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that I'm used to. Certainly a different take, a different flavor from what I am familiar with, and it's not a bad thing. So if you want to find this quick start is entirely free on goodman-games.com, as well as dozens of other adventure modules, supplements, and I'm assuming expansions of this game for people who are truly fans of it. If this is for you, the link is in the description. But otherwise, I gotta get going. I'm sorry I'm cutting this a little bit short, but I just have some family stuff to take care of. Otherwise, we're gonna pick up next week for game 83 of 99 more RPGs. We're so close to the ending. We're gonna wrap this up by Christmas for sure. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for stopping by. If you've made it to the end of the stream, and have a wonderful week and a wonderful holiday if you celebrate. Stay frosty. Why is this? That's not it. Why is this text cut off? Who did this? Is that me? Why does it say see you next, Tim? All right, whatever. Good night, guys.